welcome to this episode of Authentic Achievements, where I'm delighted to be joined by the fabulous Kadin McElwain. Kadin, lovely to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Kim.
I'm super excited about this, but before we get into the conversation, let me share with our audience a little bit more about you. So Kadin is an autistic college student. He's a writer and an activist on a mission to raise awareness about autism and to bring it to a national audience. Throughout his life, he was told that he couldn't amount to anything because he was autistic, but time and time again, he's proved his naysayers wrong. And I'm thrilled that I'm able to be part of that journey in breaking down those barriers and sharing with a wider audience just what can be achieved when we take away the label. So, Kadin, can you start by sharing with us a little bit about your journey so far, please?
Yeah, absolutely. I was diagnosed when I was 2 years old, coincidentally after getting the smallpox vaccination. That didn't cause it, of course, but I always find it funny because that conspiracy is always floating around these days, which is obviously not true. And that's very confusing to me, and part of those stigmas I want to clear out. And elementary school, that was easy for me. I was popular. People understood I was autistic, looking for a friend, and they respected me because back then we didn't see labels. But middle school and high school, as typical with a lot of people, that was a nightmare of bullying and being treated like garbage, misunderstandings, drama, and unnecessary crap.
Yeah.
And middle school, actually, my IEP was cut off completely without my parents' knowledge or consent, which is actually illegal here in the States.
Yeah.
And they weren't going to tolerate that. So what my parents did was they wrote to every single autism organization in the state of Tennessee, which is where the school was at.
Yeah.
And they even threw in a state senator because they thought they had some power to bring that back, because they knew that IEP was a big thing for success in the school.
Yeah.
But the problem was the school couldn't tell I was on the autism spectrum because I was doing well academically, doing well behaviorally. In fact, I was some of my teachers' most favorite students, not to
Yeah.
brag. And they pretty much misunderstood the whole thing, which I found absurd. I still find it absurd because I think that schools should know that autism doesn't necessarily mean drooling on yourself, speaking in grunts, and not being able to maintain yourself. It means you may be smart, you may be amazing behaviorally, you might just need help with the social stuff and all the other complicated things of life. And then, of course, COVID hit in my junior year of high school, so everything was online. At first, I absolutely despised it the most. But the more I got into it, the more I learned that I could concentrate better online than in the standard classroom. No need to worry about students bullying you or making you feel ashamed of who you are. No need to worry about your IEP hanging in the balance on a thread. It's just you, your computer, and your academics. And I actually ended up graduating early on Valentine's Day of 2022.
Yeah.
And then I got into college. I started my freshman year at Lake Erie College, which is in Painesville, Ohio. And this is where my advocacy work truly began. It all started with a class project we had to do for a leadership class. The assignment was to think of a way to help the community and act upon it. So me and my group, this was a group project, we set up a GoFundMe for the Autism Society of America, and we ended up raising over $1,000 for it, and we won a contest within the school with it. But as typical with my generation, the TikTok generation, my group truly wasn't into it. They only wanted to do the assignment to get the grade and the prize money we got for winning the contest, and I found that absurd. And I also began to notice a trend around that time. Autistic people aren't taken seriously enough. Well, not just autism, other special needs too. And I thought, in today's inclusive society, you would think that would be a mainstream issue. But nope, we're focused on TikTok bans and negativity and division. especially just this year alone. So I thought, if no one else is going to take it seriously, I might as well be the leader of this movement to bring it to a mainstream audience. So that class project led to all kinds of opportunities for me, including talking with government officials about autism, going on shows like this to tell my story and bring it to people's attention, doing a Christmas drive for people with special needs. So we ended up getting enough toys to help 4 families with special needs kids have the best Christmas ever.
That's amazing.
9 different businesses pitched in, and I even shared my birthday with one of my favorite organizations, the Lake County Special Needs Birthday Club, which is here in Painesville, I believe. And we raised $200 during the birthday fundraiser we held for that.
That's amazing. I love that you've taken your lived experience and are now sharing that to help others, because I think that's one of the big challenges, isn't it? When we're going through something, we think we're on our own, and actually lots of other people are going through the same thing, but we don't know where to go to find that out, to understand what it's like, and actually what other opportunities there are. So I love that actually you're taking that, and instead of letting that adversity drag you down, you're actually using it to propel yourself forward and to help other people learn also from your lived experience, and help us break down those barriers. Because as you say, we're supposed to be an inclusive society, and yet we still get it so wrong, don't we?
Yeah, we absolutely do. I think we're making progress, but I think there's a better way. Like with DI, I think that's a really good idea in hindsight. We
Yeah,
just got to make sure we balance it out, putting sensitive topics into schools. That's great and all. I think kids need to learn how to respect others for who they are. There's a better way to approach it. There really is,
yeah,
as to not further cause division. Because so I think you're in Britain, right?
yeah, yeah,
Right now, here in the States, well, there's division everywhere. These past few months, some people of my generation decided it would be appropriate to act like a wild animal on college campuses for a cause they believe in. I'm not going to say it because I don't want to get too deep into politics
yeah,
out of respect. But personally, I found that absurd, because that's not what you do to get your point across. And you most certainly don't commit crimes like vandalism and assault for the cause either. And I told some students this at another school I transferred to after my freshman year, Kent State University. I said, look, I admire what y'all are doing, but there's a better way. Just do what I'm doing. Plan fundraisers, do stuff like this.
mm,
And, but the problem is, whenever you do that, especially in my generation, you get attacked and accused of hating certain groups, and people are quick to jump to conclusions, and it's terrifying to me. It truly is.
yeah. It's scary, isn't it, when you think that we've managed to create a society where um, we kind of compare ourselves, and we want to fit into a box, we want to fit into a label, so that actually we won't be singled out as being too different, because different is unacceptable. And yet we're all different. Every single one of us is different. So we need to get to a space where we can embrace the differences and find the commonalities, isn't it? Find a way through where we can work together. And I've always thought a large part of that is to understand better. And we understand better by learning other people's story, by learning what it's been like for them, because that gives us a better insight to be able to find a new way through, doesn't it? Find a way where everyone feels included and valued. You mentioned in the piece earlier that actually, when you first started out at school, everything went much easier because children don't see the labels until they get older, do they? They just accept you as their friend for who they are. And so I wonder, is there anything you could share with us that you think we could be doing differently in how we're educating our children as parents and as and as society, to not be so hung up on those labels that they get to slightly later on in their childhood?
I would say, honestly, teach your kid kindness the second they're beginning to start school, and continue that lesson throughout their academic career, especially in high school and college. Because my time in college has been great so far.
Yeah.
People are more inclusive, but there's still that small few who act like children and think going to frats is okay, and hurting girls is okay, and there's still division on college campuses as well, especially amongst student groups, and that's because there's a lack of kindness in the world.
Yeah.
And it's my personal belief that everything starts at the home. If parents are mean to the child, teach them to hate certain groups due to whatever reason, and worship people like Alex Jones or Andrew Tate or Solon Diddy Ohms, if you know who he is, more likely than not, the child's going to go out and do the same thing. It's a monkey see, monkey do situation, especially nowadays, or a keeping up with the Joneses situation, if you will.
Yeah.
But it doesn't cost a lot to be kind. It truly doesn't.
Well, no, but I think sometimes that's one of the other challenges in life. The things that come to us for free, we don't value enough. So kindness and love and compassion, they're all free. They don't cost us anything. We can have those, and therefore we forget to value them, and we're too busy instead, valuing possessions, which and never going to be as valuable as like you say, that bit of kindness. I've got a 7-year-old, and we talk about kindness all the time, kindness to self, kindness to others, because if you're not being kind, I will say to her, is that kind what we're thinking? To get her to just consider, how would she feel if she were on the receiving end of whatever it was she's just said? Because I don't think we spend enough time trying to put ourselves in the other person's shoes, do we? To think, how would I feel if I were them, and this was being landed in my door, at my in my space.
Yeah, exactly. We truly don't put ourselves in other person's shoes these days, especially my generation. Instead, they whine and complain and moan and groan. And there's this thing going around called cancel culture, where they try to bring celebrities down over their past, and they throw that in their face. And it's getting even worse, quite frankly, with artificial intelligence, in my opinion, because you can now digitally manipulate images or videos.
Yeah.
And that further takes away people's careers and lives, and it further spreads negativity in a way.
Yeah, and sadly, that's driven by the fact that as a society as a whole, we seem to prefer to see things going wrong than we do to see things going right. And I don't know why. I don't know why that is. I don't know why we're so driven by, if something goes wrong, then we're all over that. If something's negative, if there's that negative energy, then that's the thing that gets watched. Whereas if it's something that's really positive and uplifting, then you've got to fight so much harder to be heard. And yet you're so right in what you're saying, Kadin. If we had more kindness in the world and more willingness to be open-minded to what it might be like for the other person, then actually we would start to have less negativity, wouldn't we? We'd start to find some positive common ground that we can work from.
I like that. I absolutely agree. We need common ground, especially now more than ever.
Yeah. And I think I think one of the challenges, and I talk to people about this all the time, is we as our brains work, we are quick to make a judgment. So somebody says something and we immediately will decide whether we agree or we disagree with it. So I agree, I disagree. And actually, for me, one of the things that I think, as well as kindness, we need more of is curiosity of ourselves and others. So, now when I find myself immediately making my judgment of whether I agree or disagree, I will ask myself, okay, that's really interesting. Why are you so adamant that you agree or you disagree? I wonder how they got there. So just try and look around the situation, because we live in a world of polarity. For every up, there's a down. For every left, there's a right. One doesn't exist without the other. So for whatever we're thinking, the opposite is also true. And once we create a space where we can be open to that, we start to see things in more of a 360, and that helps us to find a different path, doesn't it? To be able to disagree with each other, but not disrespect each other. It's like we don't always have to agree, but we just don't disrespect. We treat people with kindness, even if we go, well, I have a different opinion to you, but you're entitled to yours and I'm entitled to mine. We can leave it there. But we seem to have created this thing where you've just got to win. You've got to win the argument, you've got to win the reasoning, rather than just be open to learning something new. Would you say that's fair?
That's absolutely fact. We're not open to new things and new ideas these days. Instead, we want things to remain the same, and we want negativity to remain the same. I think here in the States, they discussed passing a House bill or something for, I think, immigration or whatever, climate change maybe, and they sought it down because they knew that people would whine and complain and moan and groan because they like their lifestyle and they want things to remain the same.
Yeah, I think sometimes that fear of change can hold lots of people back, because change is unknown, isn't it? And even if we might not love what we've got today, at least we know what it is. And when we go into something that is unknown, then we're having to take that leap of faith into the fact that it will be the same or better. And I think that sometimes discourages people, doesn't it?
It absolutely does.
So you've already done like so much, and I love that you're using your voice to kind of raise awareness on this. What would you say is the thing that you're proudest of so far?
Proudest accomplishment. Here, I'll show you. It's, I would say, I don't want to break anything. This bad boy here. The Proclamation for Autism Awareness Day in Portis County.
Yeah.
It's not in my name, of course, but I was the first autistic person in the history of them recognizing this day to get this bad boy. Historically, this county has only done doctors and presented it to them. But I called up the commissioner because he was running for re-election of commissioner in her county. And I asked her, look, what do you guys do for autism awareness? And how do you help the autism community? And she told me about how they recognize Autism Awareness Day constantly. And I told her my story, and she was like, oh, you should totally come to the ceremony. We'd love to recognize you. We normally do doctors and people in the medical field, but it'd be nice to give a different perspective.
Oh,
and as the saying goes, the rest is history.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So, and you've shared this a lot throughout this conversation, that you've reached out and spoken to senators and other people, and raising awareness in the community, going out and speaking to other organizations. How do you find the bravery to do that? And that's as an individual, not because you're autistic, because that's something that holds so many people back, isn't it? That having the courage to take that first step. So how do you do that?
Well, I'm just a guy who believes in this cause, and like we talked about, open to new ideas and new experiences, pretty much. particularly with speaking. I was nonverbal until I was 7 years old, which is a
Mhm.
symptom of autism, being nonverbal until a
Yeah.
certain point in your childhood. And once I started talking, I pretty much just couldn't stop.
Probably got that 7 years like already of all your thoughts, like really well planned in being able to. I guess you were an amazing observer of life, because you weren't communicating it verbally at the time. So your other senses get heightened, don't they? So I would imagine you got to see things in a way that perhaps we miss when we're busy talking, because we're busy thinking about what's going to come out of our mouth next, aren't we?
We absolutely do. I might be volunteering at an autism center near where I live this summer. I got to follow up with them today, hopefully. But that's going to teach me to be very grateful to where I'm at and the success I've had so far. Because of the people who go to that center, they can't walk, they can't talk, they're more lower functioning than I am, and they have to be taken care of for the rest of their lives. And it's truly sad to see. It truly is.
Yeah, but I think you're so right, and you use the word grateful and gratitude. And I think sometimes we get so stuck in our own world that we forget just all the things that we have to be grateful for, that we perhaps take for granted. That because they're there all of the time, like the ability to walk and talk and look after yourself is something that we can forget to be grateful for, because it we have that already. But when you see people that haven't got that, it reminds you of all that we have to be so grateful for, doesn't it? To enable us to give thanks back.
It really does. So I think that's the problem with what's going on with Diddy right now, the raids and the arrests and the lawsuit, because with wealth comes ungratefulness. With ungratefulness comes an inflated ego, which makes him think he can do whatever he wants.
Yeah, I think we have to keep ourselves grounded, don't we, in that gratitude and kindness and compassion for. And for me, I always share with people, make sure that's self and others, and because I've seen it where it's just others, and then the person isn't giving anything for themselves, or if it's just about self, then you're not really being that grateful and kind, because you're doing it at the expense often of other people. So, Kadin, for you, what would you say has been your greatest lesson so far?
I would say, and I've had buns, keep in mind,
Mhm.
embrace who you are has been the biggest life lesson I've learned. As it took me a while, thanks to the bullying I received in middle and high school and some personal issues, to truly embrace autism and who I am. At first, I thought of it as a curse and something that can be cured, but even now, I'm still learning about it. And the more I'm learning about it, the more I'm learning that autism can actually be a blessing because, like you said, my perspective of the world is more open. I see the issues of the world openly. I'm incredibly intelligent. And believe it or not, there's been a bunch of successful people with autism who've made great accomplishments in the worlds of technology and entertainment and sciences. Isaac Newton, he was on the spectrum. Einstein was on the spectrum. Elon Musk was on the spectrum. Dan Aykroyd, one of my favorite philosophers, Friedrich Nietzsche. All these people were on the autism spectrum, yet they still overcame whatever struggles they had to have tremendous success in their industries. In fact, one of the highlights of my college career thus far was interviewing another person with autism who's had success, Temple Grandin.
Amazing. And you're right. So many people have achieved great things who are on the spectrum, because from what I understand from speaking to people, you can often see patterns we can't see because your brains just work in a slightly different way. And that's why, I know lots of organizations that are really starting to embrace neurodiversity as a way to increase the talent in their organization, because actually we can start to see things in a much more 360 way by actually building teams that include the neurodiverse to help see patterns and solutions that can't be seen without their special talent. And I love that you now are seeing your autism as a blessing. I think everything in life that happens to us, I believe, is either a lesson, a blessing, or both. So when I'm not feeling very blessed, I look for the lesson, and the blessing's usually sat there. But we've got to go looking for it, haven't we?
We absolutely do.
So what's next for you?
Well, at the time of this recording, I'm in the final stages of planning a voting event in my county on June 21st to add to my local Dairy Queen. The purpose of this event is to get people to go out and vote in this year's presidential election. Of course, this episode will come out the 26th, but at the time of this, that event would have taken place. So at the time of posting, of course, so maybe next year I'll do a follow-up with you to update you on how that event went. But it's going to be awesome. This is the most important election thus far, and it's the first year I can vote legally as an adult. I'm going to be 20 this year, so that's another thing I'm sharing with my community. Of course, I got a bunch more podcast appearances and platform appearances this year, and of course, I'm going to be a junior in college, and hopefully, by the time I get my degree, have a successful career in public relations, and I've had my fun, I might even run for political office, because I think the world of politics needs a neurodivergent mind in the mix, especially in American politics. They would probably teach people not to be so corrupt and disrespectful.
I love that. So there's definitely loads planned, and I'm looking forward to hearing how you get on with that and sharing those successes. How can people get involved? What can they do to help?
Well, if you're in the Ohio area on the 21st, come to the event at DQ in Perry, Ohio. But in the sense of autism overall, I would say do the same stuff I'm doing. Plan fundraisers, plan events, go on platforms like this if you're on the spectrum to tell your story. And most importantly, just be kind to people. Like you said, it doesn't cost a lot to be kind.
Yeah, it doesn't, and we can all do that. We will make sure, Kadin, that in the notes below people can get in touch with you. So we've got your links to you, and you've got a book as well, haven't you?
Oh no, I don't have a book. I have a blog of sports.
Blog, sorry, it was the
yeah, on the sportscolumn.com. Exact same spelling of my name when you search for it, so you can check those out.
Fab, and we'll make sure that they are in the notes below so that people can continue to see your work and to help share your message. So you've already shared so much with us, but if you could go back, and I know you're only 20, but if you could go back and give your younger self a piece of advice, what would it be?
I would tell my younger self, embrace who you are. And if people don't like you for who you are, don't give them the time of day, because they're the ones who are going to miss out on an amazing person.
I love that, because we do sometimes we hold ourselves up against other people's perceived opinion of us instead of actually just getting comfortable with who we are. And what you shared reminds me of a quote that I found a few years ago. And I was very guilty of desperately trying to be everybody's cup of tea. And as a British person, it's impossible. We could argue about how we take our tea as much as we could argue about politics and religion. It's like, it's just never going to happen. And this quote was, I'd rather be somebody's shot of whiskey than everybody's cup of tea. And I loved that, because for the right people, you will be their shot of whiskey. And for the rest of them, they're just not your people. And once you can let go of that, everything becomes so much easier, doesn't it?
It truly does.
Kadin, it's been an absolute delight to chat to you. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. And thank you for having the courage, not just on this show, but in life in general, to take your lived experience and share it to help other people to gain the awareness so that we can provide a better and more inclusive society. So thank you.
Thanks for having me, Kim.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Until next time, take care.
Thank you.